Hello, everyone. I'm Stewart Gandolf. Welcome to Local SEO for Multi-Location Providers. I'm excited to have you attend today, and it looks like we have people are still coming in, but we can go ahead and get started here. Grant is going to, can you switch to the next slide? So I'm Stewart. If you're new to our webinar series, I'm CEO of Healthcare Success. Some of you that are regular viewers or readers to our blog will know that I love SEO and digital marketing. I built my own company this way, as we certainly do a lot of it for our clients. Today's topic is about multi-location providers. So that could be addiction, DSOs in dentistry, PPMs in medical, health systems. So it's all about multi-location providers, and a key strategy for clients that we work with here would be local SEO, showing up and owning Google locally. Back up, Grant. I got to introduce you. Grant is our senior SEO strategist. He's a big part of our team, and we have a bunch of people on our SEO team. And so Grant leads strategy and client relationships on much of the work we do. And Grant's a established how do we say this, Grant? A very experienced
Seasoned.
SEO.
Let's say seasoned. I'm okay with that.
So Grant will be leading most of this presentation. To answer your questions before you ask it, yes, we will have a recording of this webinar. So if you registered, the recording will be available, and we will have a brief Q&A. Grant and I both like to move quickly, so we're going to move at light speed here and cover a whole bunch of territory pretty quickly. Grant, any comments before we jump in?
I'm just going to say it is focused on multi-location. If you do have one or two locations, this strategy and these tactics are going to be really important. It's really around, local practices. But obviously we focus a lot on the multi-location, but I think you also find some use if you have a large single location or just a couple of locations. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
Great. All right, let's jump in. Next slide.
Okay.
Next slide. So we're going to talk about today briefly. Here's the agenda for the day. What the heck is local SEO? Why do we care? Why it's especially important to multi-location providers, though, as Grant really said, at any location, any kind of provider, it matters to. What are some of the local features and products, and diving deep into the map pack that we lovingly call. How does Google rank local businesses? The reality is, no matter how smart we are and how much we try, we can't control, and neither can you, everything when it comes to local SEO. So we'll talk about realistically what you can control, what you can't control, some of the challenges, and some of the ways that our firm can help. If you're interested in this, I'm sure you're going to walk away with plenty of information you can use. You may feel like you're drinking from a fire hose today. Next slide. So what is local SEO? Well, local SEO really essentially is coming up on a location by location basis on Google predominantly, but also on Bing/Microsoft. We're going to focus today primarily on Google just because that's where the big numbers are. And I just want to point out, as Grant and I were preparing for this meeting, that I remember, because I've been just fascinated with the internet since the very beginning, how horrible it was at local in the old days. Like, I remember looking for a dentist online when the internet was still relatively new, and it would give me topics about how to become a dentist, or it'd send me to the ADA. And I could even say, the equivalent of dentist near me, and I just couldn't find anything. So local search was definitely an afterthought in those early days. And now it's a big part of it. And in fact, now, if you just put the word dentist in, chances are it's going to give you local searches. Google is always trying to determine your intent. And so now it's erring on the side of local as opposed to an afterthought. Next slide. So, local SEO is really interesting because as we look here at a SERP, as we call it in the business, search engine results page, there's typically a lot of different things going on. Sometimes, and many times, there's ads at the top up there. Sometimes there's a carousel or different kinds of results up there. The map pack is what I refer to it as the map pack. I think Grant calls it the local pack, but typically we'll see 3 or 4 businesses there like we see here. And that's really the game we're talking about today, how to show up amongst those on the front page for your location, for people that are searching for you. How do you win that game? And that is not luck. What I have found is, again, when we first started this, most companies were incompetent at this, but now, especially multi-location providers, there's winners and losers. Some are really, really good at this and have, proper, agencies and teams of people to make sure this stuff is going well, and others not so much. And the not so much category means you're not there in those top three. So to win really takes some effort and energy. We're going to talk about how to do that today. First of all, recognize that, back up. There's one of the biggest things is to recognize that there's a different algorithm for local search. So it's a whole different game. We talked about SEO on some of our other webinars. This is a whole different game, and Grant's going to be talking about a lot of those details as to how. The other point I just wanted to reaffirm here is this is all about intent. People that are looking to go to a business specifically because of its location. All right, next slide now. So another point we like to make here is just how often are people using local SEO? And those of you that have good SEO probably already recognize this, that it does drive a whole bunch of users to local providers. Even when people are, certainly consumer direct specialties like dentistry and dermatology, but even when people are being referred to a gastroenterologist or, a neurosurgeon, they often will check what else is available near me. And, I personally have chose my medical group because they've got a really good urgent care as well as doctor near me. So that's a big driver. And so Google has the local search is really important. And you can see just from this data that search engines are driving lots and lots of people looking for health information. Next slide. One of the things we talk about here too is like as you scale, as you get bigger, this becomes harder. So it's hard even for a single location. But if you have dozens of locations, it just expands as you would expect on a multiplicative or logarithmic way. Because you need to be thinking about how to do this so that you look like you're location specific. You want to have consistent and accurate information for all of your locations. You want to have differentiated content for each location, a way of making it easy for search engines to figure out what exactly it is you're doing, logical site structure. This needs to be, by the way, and Grant will talk about this, coordinated with your efforts with your Google directories, but also with what's happening on your website. And you need to monitor your results and adjust, track, test, and adjust and optimize your local location. So again, as you start entering dozens of locations or hundreds of locations, the complexity just increases. And this is just a vitally important part of this. And but what's the great news is when you play this right, it's a very powerful strategy. First of all, we love paid search, as you probably know from other seminar or other webinars we've done. We love organic SEO, but local SEO, remember, you don't have to pay them for the organic part of this. You can't advertise in the map pack, but you can get a tremendous amount of traffic and business from the local SEO. And in fact, here again, we are targeting, thinking about local. Everything should be about how do I get these people who are searching for me in my area. Next slide. This is a fun fact, going back to my discussion a moment ago. If back in the early days, Google was pretty horrible at doing local searches, and therefore nobody was searching that way. Over time, though, you can see here by the chart that searches, including the term near me, just rocketed. And I actually remember talking about this back in around, when is that, 2014, 2016. We used to do a lot of live seminars in Las Vegas. And so we showed the front end of that chart. And, it's only grown since then. So the interest in near me searches has rocketed. And, again, we want to be there. Next slide. Another category to think about as the businesses we have today that we work with vary a lot. We work with, pharma, device, and telehealth and software and lots of different businesses. But a lot of our clients are providers. And of those providers, telemedicine or telehealth are typically big parts and growing parts of their business. And so it's really important. But even for those providers, that face-to-face still matters to most patients. So telehealth, depending on the business model, sometimes it's all they have, but a lot of times it's more of an adjunct. Interestingly, if you're a telehealth provider, not being able to show up in the local health pack is a problem, right? If you're not local anywhere, you're not showing up locally anywhere. So the old-fashioned providers with physical facilities have an advantage in this category. So anyway, again, as we start thinking about our marketing, this should be a broader strategy. How does telehealth fit? But recognizing those local locations are an incredible asset. We should be maximizing them, even if we have a telehealth business, or even if we're trying to expand our telehealth services. And with that, I want to turn this over to Grant, my colleague. I'll chime in as a co-host. Grant, take it away.
Thank you. I get into a little bit more geeky stuff, but you've already mentioned a lot of the key components here. When we talk about intent, we're really talking about whether Google can understand what someone is hoping to find. And a local intent can be demonstrated with a geo-targeted query or a geo-modified query. A geo-target is when Google takes what you've typed in and says, this is definitely a local intent query. So I live in Virginia Beach, so you can see a lot of Virginia Beach examples, but ENT doctor, it naturally targets the locality, and it thinks about, where is the nearest location, who is the best location that I can recommend. So on this in particular instance, when I do ENT doctor, we can see some generic results happen. When I do ENT doctor in Virginia Beach, I get this local pack that actually shows the locations of doctors near me. So there is a distinct difference between those geo-targeted and geo-modified terms. And we see both, as important, because although there are some generic terms you can show up for, you've got to build out a lot more content and authority to be able to show up for that first. So we really say anytime you have a physical location, you should be looking at both whether you're driving traffic from a geo-targeted term or whether you're driving from a geo-modified term. And you'll notice that Google, when you put in a geo-modified term, like this case, ENT doctor in Washington, D.C., it then targets and gives you results for Washington, D.C. So it does recognize that difference. Even though I search from Virginia Beach, it's going to give me practices in what D.C. Now, why is this important? Because not everyone is necessarily looking for results in their local area. For example, in addiction, potentially, someone might be looking for something out of their area just because that's their preference. And so sometimes someone might be visiting a particular area and wants to see something local. So we have to be really careful and distinct about how we position our website, how we say where we exist, to make sure that search engines understand that you're local for local results, where people are actually local, and you're local for results where people are modifying their query to put a specific location in. Now, we talked about this area, the local pack, called lots of different things. Google has rebranded this a lot. Right now, its title is Places. And this is really a mini set of results. It uses the different algorithm, as Stewart mentioned. And we're going to cover a lot of these differences in the presentation, how you can show up in this local pack, in this Places area, how you can show up better, and how you can improve the click-through rate from this. So why should someone choose position 3 over position 1? So we're going to go through this as well to talk about how we can show up better. Now, this does appear generally above the organic results, but sometimes, often, there are paid search results above, and there's also 1 or 2 organic results potentially. So we don't forget SEO. This is an adjunct to the SEO. Now, other stuff that Google also geo-targets based on where you are in the autocomplete. So when you start typing in for your search, Google will try and complete it for you. Now, it's interesting because it is geo-targeted, but you can see there's a lot of variety there. Why I love autocomplete is that you type in for each of your locations, and you're going to find that there are opportunities in there. For example, accepting Medicaid, ENT doctor for child. Do you have a child service, pediatric service? And there's some specific queries around challenges. ENT doctor near me for earwax removal. So it's really important to look at this as well. And we dig in and look at this to make sure the content matches some of these search queries that Google's suggesting. Now, this autocomplete does come from your past searches, so it understands what you've already searched for. It comes from trends, so if there's some that's time-based, the language and the location it's from. It's also based on real search results or real search queries. So it's really good to data mine as well. Now, They're also, when someone explicitly searches for a doctor in one of your practices or specifically searches for your practice, you are going to see these people and business names show up within the search results above the local pack. So even though they both have a local presence in that local pack, it can also show up, as I said, in organic for specific intent-driven queries. So a lot of this is important because we have a chance to influence some of this by adding in additional information, specifically around our doctors, around our practices. And the key thing there is Google doesn't just look at what we put out. It also looks at what's out on other websites, such as hospitals that might mention the doctor, and other where they might be credentialed. Other things like where they went to school or other reviews around the web. So we want to be really aware of every single doctor, every single practice, and every single fact that might be out there to be able to build the best display to obviously drive the click-through rate. Now, if I do click on one of the places in the local pack, I'm going to go here. This is called the Google Local Finder. And most of us use Google, and most of us have probably clicked on a result. But this is more of a deeper dive and obviously a wider area in this case, where it gives you another longer list of all the different folks within the area. And there is an order here, a best match order, that is Google's algorithm, as we've talked about, different from the organic. And there is an opportunity for users to add particular filters to this. So it's really important to make sure that you give all the information to Google, because there's things like a new algorithm called openness. And openness is based on when someone searches, are you open? And if you're open, you're going to turn up higher. So these are things we can control. Is we can't control our opening hours, but we control that Google has that information and access to that information. Now, the default best match is generally based on proximity. So how far you are from where Google recognizes the user is searching. Your reviews play a really large part in rankings as well, and the opening hours, open or not. And you can see that Google also provides different filters, and these are based on the result set. So you can see not only are they giving options like Medicaid accepted or not, Medicare, really important to make sure that these things exist on your site and that we give this information to Google. Reviews, we have definitely have control over the quality and the amount of our reviews. The best match or distance, so you can actually filter it because there's many components go into this, but users can say what's closest to me. It's part of the algorithm. And as we said, the openness, whether something is open, the time and everything else. If I then click on a result there in that local finder, I get what's called a knowledge panel. Now, more often than not, this is pulled from many sources around the web, as well as something we're going to cover in a lot of detail today, which is the Google Business Profile when it's specific to a business. We really want to make sure, once again, all the information we have that we provide to Google. Now, in this particular area, photos can be from users or from the business. We can influence that by contributing high quality photos to our Google Business Profile. And we can also interact with things like the reviews and elements like that. And we can obviously make sure when we have multiple locations that all our locations, addresses, and actual physical location on the map are correct. As I say, there's a lot of moving parts here. And as Stewart said, multi-location, the more locations you have, the more complex it can get. The fundamentals are still the same. We just got to be able to scale. Now, if you haven't, at the very highest level, claim your business on Google Business Profile. So when you do a search and you do a search for your business, if it hasn't been claimed, it's going to say, claim this business. You then have to jump through a few hoops to verify that it's actually your business. So first thing is claim your business. Second thing is modify or edit your Google Business Profile. Really important stuff to fit in, like hours for openness and what you actually offer and things like that. Once again, we're going to a lot of detail today. So those elements, though, can affect the filtering, what's available or whether people can actually find you. So, if you have 5-star reviews, if people filter by 5 stars, you're going to show up. By the same token, if people are filtering on 5 stars and you have 4 stars, our opportunity is to try and improve that. So I'm going to give you at the very highest level what the ranking factors are. So if you're going to be able to see this, you're going to be able to follow up, on this presentation. But the very highest level, and we will go into some of these details, is Google Business Profile Signals. How far you are away, the categories you enter, the keywords used in your Google Business Profile, image quality and openness. These are basic stuff. So whether you're open or not. On-page signals. So the presence of name, address, and phone number, making sure you have that very clear for each of locations. Locations in titles and meta descriptions. This is obvious if you say ENT in Virginia Beach versus another location. You might have ENT in Chesapeake. You want to make sure that that is really clear on the page in titles and meta descriptions and in headings, that that's really where that location is. And content helpfulness is something Google brought out an algorithm update over the last 12, 14 months called the Helpful Content Update. And that really is, how do you add additional value? How do you add additional content to that particular page to make it more helpful for the users? Something like, we accept Medicare here, or something like, we have accessibility, so we have ramp access. All these things add to the helpfulness and have to be customized on a per location basis. Link signals, you probably hear about link building and how it drives, Google. It used to drive Google a lot, and Google was in fact built on links coming to your site. It's still important, not quite as much on a local basis of saying the more links, the better, or the better links, the better. It really is based on, can you get links from other local businesses in your area or in the area of your particular clinic or practice? And that's also something that takes a little bit of time, energy, and effort. And we go through a couple of these things in a bit more detail. Citation signals is where you are mentioned on the web. Some of these can be in like directories, doctor reviews or something like that. And some of them can also be in things like Yelp or Apple Maps or Bing Maps or in Go Squared or other directories that Google uses to make sure every address is consistent. And so we have systems that basically go out and check every single mention of every single location you have and make sure that that is syndicated with the right name, address, and phone number, so that Google understands that consistency and understands that you are A, the right business, and B, the right business in the right location. Reviews, very, very, very important, and not just how many you get, but the diversity and quality of reviews. So if it's just a star review, that's different than when someone actually leaves a comment. And Google expects you're not going to get all 5 stars. So a diversity in that is also important as well. So if you're getting 4, 4.5 stars and 5 stars, that's sometimes better than getting all 5 stars, where Google thinks you're just saying, hey, give us 5 stars and we'll give you an extra 10% off. That does happen with some businesses, generally medical businesses, not so much. But we would say that responding to reviews does show that you have an intent to provide the best service. And so responding to reviews is also really important. Social signals, so Google engagement, so how people interact with your Google business profile, response and posting. Facebook signals, these are not actual ranking factors, but signals. Do you have a Facebook page? Are people engaging? Twitter, are people engaging? Google sees a lot of connections, not directly, but indirectly. And some of these can help in just branding and visibility. And that contributes to that brand mention, which is really important. Google loves brands. And so if you can create more of an ecosystem of people talking about you, it's really important. Behavioral signals, this actually came out in Google's antitrust lawsuit that's going on right now. They do use click-through from the search results to have a better understanding of whether a particular result is trusted. So, we've said about how we can show up in different positions within local, but also inspire the clicks from local. Having 5-star reviews is a classic thing. You're probably going to get more clicks with more reviews, better reviews, than if you don't have as good reviews. So it's really important. Also, on mobile, when someone pulls up your business, they can click to call. So Google's able to track that. On-page actions, submitting forms, whatever Google can see, they're actually going to, give some precedence over things that they can't necessarily see. So building out the site, building out the location is really important. Return to SERP. So if someone searches, doesn't find what they want, and then comes back to the search results, we want to make sure that they stay on the site by providing this helpful content. So really important for your locations. Personalization, we can't really control. That's generally based on what a user has already searched for. And proximity, we can't really control either how close the business is to where the searcher is. But these are the local rankings in a nutshell. Probably take a snapshot of that. We go through this in more detail, but it's interesting to know. It's interesting to know that Google simplifies this down to relevance, distance, and prominence. So all those things kind of filtered down to relevance, how well a local business matches what somebody's searching for. Distance, how far away you might be from where that searcher is. And prominence, how well the business is known within the web ecosystem, such as, reviews number one from local people, brand mentions on social and things like that, click-through rates, how people understand that your business is in fact a brand, that your medical practice is trusted. Now, one last thing that's really important is also nothing happens in a vacuum. And so Google says your position in web results is also a factor. So search engine optimization, SEO, should be applied. So your location pages should also be looked at through an SEO lens. Before I jump into this, Stewart, did you have anything to add to that at all?
Well, yes. The main thing I think is that as we have those factors, especially the idea of the main website, is such a critical thing. We're talking today about the Google directory. We're talking about claiming, and I think Grant, you're going to talk in a moment about verifying. But this is hard. I guess two things to keep in mind here. Grant's information is obviously very valid. Number one, the location page on the website is going to be absolutely critical. And number two, when Grant goes into the verification process, which he alluded to a little bit ago, it's hard for everybody. So that is one bit of good news here for you as you think about your, showing up online competitively. I've been to Google headquarters where people raise their hand and say, are you guys going to make this local process any easier for us? This is back, I don't know, New York, maybe in 2018. And, the problem still persists. So keep going, Grant. This is awesome.
Okay, thank you. I'm answering a few questions in the Q&A as we go along. So if you see me typing off to one side, I'm doing that. Please, if you have any questions, we can certainly answer them in real time, and also we'll save some to the end as well. But please keep asking those questions. Thank you. All right. Google Business Profile, absolutely fundamental to your local presence on Google. All right. And I am going to spend some time on this because it's really important. Now, remember, in your organization, I know you probably don't have an SEO specialist or a local SEO specialist that's just waiting around to do all this stuff. There is a lot of things you want to make sure are done. Obviously, we can help, but obviously it needs to get done. So if you are signed in to your Google account for your business and you go to look at your business, this is what you'll see. And it's obviously healthcare success, but you'll see your business. You'll see this different areas of what you can do. And you can also see your knowledge panel on one side to see how other people might see your business. The main thing here is if you have multiple locations, you're going to see something like this. So you essentially have all these different locations within your Google business account, and you have to verify each of them. Now, verification is, frankly, this is probably a technical term, Stuart, a pain in the tush, because there's a lot of ways that Google wants to make sure that someone doesn't say they're you. So verification, phone or text to a business number, email to a business email, A video recording, a lot of times medical clinics, because there's a higher standard for medical locations, Google will ask you to do a video of the inside or outside or both of your practice, of your location. And then you have to upload that into Google. Now, obviously, this is something where you have to be on site. You have to have someone with a phone just doing a recording and then uploading that to the Google account. There can be a live video call, same way. A Google rep will walk you through the actual, you have to take a picture of this, or this picture of that, picture of that. And there's the snail mail option of doing it via mail, where they'll send you a postcard to your business address with a verification code. Now, a lot of work to get this done. But like I said, it is important because you cannot change your listing until you have actually verified that account.
I'd just like to add that we do this with our clients. Back to that slide, please, Grant.
Yeah, sure.
We do this with our clients all the time. And we always say, like, when you're working with an agency, they're going to help with a lot of the strategy and every detail they can, but there's still, we throw the ball to you, you throw it back. So for example, one of the challenges with that mail option is, I can't tell you how many times the office throws the postcard away. So we have to work with our clients and just recognize it's that granular that you have to alert the front desk at office number 22 to look for that postcard. They throw it away. Guess what? You're back to square one. So it can be maddening, and there's no easy way around this, but it requires patience, thoroughness, and just a lot of work and detail to make this work. Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry, I'm just answering some of these questions. Great questions. Keep them coming, please. All right. So when you go into controlling your business, so this is a single profile now I'm looking at. The most important thing is the primary business category. And those are limited. You can't just put in anything. You have to align with one of the Google business categories, which is taken, I think, from the National Registry. The goal is to use an engaging description. We talked about click-through rates. We talked about building trust. We talked about a lot of different things. Want to make sure that description is really engaging, says what you do, says why you're different and things like this. Be specific. And it's important, you can't have too many categories, but there's very rare that businesses have more than 3 or 4 categories. Because it's limited, you want to make sure the primary is the key. It really is very, very important. I can't stress that enough. Second thing is, you can obviously control your name and address and your social profiles. These are all important to make sure filled out. And like I said, as Stewart said, we do help our clients get this stuff done because it can be tedious, but we want to make sure that this is done. The location as well is super important. Sometimes, and we've all done this, where we've looked up at somewhere, we've gone to drive there, it ends up it's not exactly right. You have to take a back street or something. So it's really important to make sure that your business location on the map matches actually where your business location is. And sometimes that's reflected in bad reviews. If someone says, I followed the Google map and I had to then take a back street to get there. So make sure it's really clear. And if you have to provide some directions in the description, you do that to make sure the customer is fully satisfied. You can define service areas. Now, these are generally for service-based companies. So generally something like a plumber or someone where they have a physical location, but they serve a certain area. You can't do it if you're a medical practice. You have to actually go to someone's place of where they live or place of business to be able to provide that service. So there might be something like house calls or deliveries of prescriptions or medical device maintenance where you actually are servicing an area, but otherwise don't fill out a service area. It's not valid or worthwhile to do. And you can actually get dinged by Google for that. So next thing is openness. We talked about as a ranking factor. Make sure your business hours are correct. And there also are an opportunity to add more hours, as you can see here, or special hours for deliveries certain times, or for holidays, or certain times when your business might be closed. You can affect it here. Really important, I say, based on this openness quotient, that you fill that in. And then more. More is really more about culture, to be honest. So You can identify your business, identify who you might serve, accessibility and everything else. I would say it's important to fill out the planning and service offerings are the most important thing to say whether you accept appointments and to say, you know, what the service options might be. So all this stuff generally, you know, it's a drop-down list that you can choose from or a few selections you can make. This is core to actually showing up for the right things, for the right stuff for your business. So really important. Then you get to this completeness of what else can we add? So if you back out to your business overview, the profile, you know, I would say walk through your dashboard. It's really important to look at these different things and understand what each thing is important for. So one of these, for example, is services. So you can add lots of services to each of your categories. So you add it on a per category basis. But it's really important to make sure you do add completely what you can do. So that's important. Also, as you can see, as I go back here, there's read and respond to reviews, add reviews, ask for reviews, add profiles, high quality. All these are very important to get a complete profile. Now, one of the other things I also look at is that response to reviews as being paramount to showing that you're engaged. So, for example, someone asks us a question and we respond to that directly in there. Ensure the information is correct, answer the questions directly. There's also a whole load of other elements that Google gives you within the actual your business area. So, you know, adding updates. I think one of the things that the biggest miss and one of the largest kind of lifts for a multi-location business is adding updates that are relevant to the location. But you should be adding updates. They will appear in your Google business profile for a specific location. You should be adding at a fairly consistent basis, maybe once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, something that's specific to that location. An update, got a new doctor, an update, you're offering a new service, an update, you're supporting local baseball, whatever it might be. You should do that. And that can be done via your website when you publish a particular article, or it can be done directly in Google, in the Google business profile. Chat allows people and your potential patients to connect with you via Google Chat. So I can open the chat thing, create an ad. Obviously, Google loves money. That's how they make their money. Add a map to your website can help making a connection between your profile and your website. Create an offer. If there's something you want to do for, you know, a sale, or, you know, 10% off something for dermatology or something like that for treatment, you can create an offer that appears within the Google business profile and on search results. Get more reviews and add exterior photo. Now, photos, high quality. Photos of your physical location, the outside, inside. So Google suggests, and this is, you know, it's kind of mind-blowing what Google likes, but take a picture from the front as if someone is walking across the street to your clinic or location. Take a picture from down the street to the left, down the street to the right, so that people understand that they're getting close to your location based on those photos. Really important to follow and, like I said, get as complete as possible. We can help, but certainly this is stuff that needs to be done on a location basis. And then the last thing, earning positive reviews and ratings. Provide exceptional service. There is no difference that you can't buy reviews that Google's going to accept. You know, eventually they look at whether a user has commented anywhere else. They're going to ding you if they're not real reviews. Ask reviews, biggest challenge. People don't actually ask. Make it easy to leave reviews. So on your website, make that connection. Respond to reviews, we talked about that. Leverage social media. When you see a positive comment about your location practice, you know, take that social media comment and put it in as a review on your website, because it's important that Google sees this complete picture. Timing is key as far as responses, and just looking at that, making sure it's consistent. Educate your staff about the importance of reviews. Obviously, you see some practices, some locations have a little sign that says scan to leave a review. Make sure that you're getting folks that are happy scanning to leave a review. Offer reminders, so put it on the back of a bill or the front of a bill, or after someone's paid a bill. Thank you so much. please leave a review and monitor the reviews. So you can have someone monitoring, we can monitor. You can have something that aggregates the reviews to make it much easier to respond to. All right, I'm going to take a little breath there. I know we're over halfway through. Stewart, have anything you want to add before I go into these local signals?
No, I think you're doing great. I love the comments and questions we're getting. It's, I guess, the last, just for the sake of time, if it sounds complicated and painful, it is. Like all these little things, photos and directory listings and getting it verified. And there's just a million moving parts, and they all cumulatively matter. And that's the secret to this, is to take this seriously. And I would say one thing that Grant and I talked about offline is that if, like we talk a lot about the minimum daily requirement to our clients, that, there's a lot of things. There's SEO, there's paid search, there's paid social, there's all these different things out there that are available for you as a marketer. One of the things we say is, look, if you're serious at all about marketing, local search has to be really at the top of the list. I mean, we love paid search, for example, and we think it's a very powerful tool. That's not right for every location, but for local SEO, even the ones that are already busy, if you're serious about marketing, do you want to be there or not? I guess that's my main comment. Do you want to be there or not? And so these techniques, I know it sounds like a lot of work, but I would argue you want to dominate that local search page, period. And that's why it's worth doing all these things. Grant, go ahead.
I know. So I'm going to jump through the next fairly quickly. We covered at a high level. And obviously for folks looking at the recording, you're going to be able to stop and read these a little bit. On-page signals, these are things you can control. Presence, name and address, obviously make sure it's consistent. Schema markup is something else. It's a little bit more advanced. Some content management systems like WordPress have plugins for locations. Put your location in titles, meta descriptions, and location notice in page headers. It's obvious. It doesn't be everywhere. You don't have to stuff it or put it absolutely everywhere, but it's important to have a differentiation between your locations. Link signals. So you can influence some of these as around internal links. So making sure that internal links point with saying the location where it might be. Some of this stuff, like I said, earning links is about publishing great content, being authority, building thought leadership like ebooks, but even stuff around the local area for a particular location, really important. So it's controllable, but you're also trying to inspire people to link to you. Citation signals, mostly controllable. So making sure that everything out there, and this is a Yelp example, everything's consistent. And so we have tools that allows us to scale that for clients that have, 2 to 2,000 locations. Really important to make sure that's consistent. The local content creation, 100% you can control this. So I use this example, seasonal pollen. If you're in Atlanta for a particular month of the year, you know that pollen's going to be a problem. So write some local content around that particular location. Really key to think about those things, whether if it's near a park, you can write something different than if you're in downtown. So think about that stuff. Content should be differentiated for location pages, as well as creating supporting local content you can publish within Google Business Profile or on your site or both. Local content creation, once again, this is really key when you're creating location pages for multi-location. You create pages for each location. One question we had is whether it's better to have location.domain or domain.com/location. Generally, it's better to have a subdirectory, so /location. Generally, it's better to have a structure or hierarchy. Your mileage may vary, and it can vary on a client-by-client basis. You have to look at the competition. You have to look at what Google's ranking to have a better understanding of which might be best in your particular area. Generally, it's directories. Review signals, obviously, you can't control every review across the internet, but you can respond to reviews. Leverage reputation management platforms, which we obviously sell as a service, but it's really important to make sure your reputation is kept up. Respond to reviews, even negative reviews. You must make sure that you are interacting to show Google, demonstrate algorithmically that you are trying to provide the best service and best support. Social signals, yeah, these are mostly controllable. You can publish content within your social ecosystem. You can respond to reviews there. You can make sure you have multimedia content, all different types of content. Really key to keep those social signals live to show you are still a viable, valuable business. Behavioral signals, tough to control exactly, but if you provide a better search result with things like ours, and someone asked me the question of, how does Google rank things differently in the actual Google Business Profile, local pack, and in local finder? They are looking at whether people are clicking on your results as part of their algorithm. They are looking at whether people are interacting, searching for your brand name and other stuff. So there's lots of things we can help control to help influence, exactly why someone should bother clicking on us rather than someone else. And then personalization signals, we can't control where someone is. We can't really control what they've searched for before, but it's good to know that if you're showing a particular result to a stakeholder in your company, it might not look the same as a user that's actually searching for your business. And finally, proximity, same thing, uncontrollable, but certainly having things like photos of the front of your storefront, your clinic, photos from the left and the right does help Google say these guys are legit. And if we're not quite there, if we're not quite in the area, we can show some options of how to find that particular business. So don't discount making sure everything is 100% complete within all your Google business profiles for all your different locations. I talked about some geeky stuff. Schema, really important. There is different schema. This is basically machine readable categories for search engines to understand who you are, what you do, what you're about, what you offer from a procedure or condition, what you treat, what kind of therapies you offer, physician type signals that define, what school they went to, what their training is, certifications, all this can be defined. It is quite technical and certainly something that is a differentiator often if people do and don't do it. And competition. This is the really important thing that we try and set expectations, which is it's a zero-sum game. If you win, someone else loses. If someone else wins, you lose. So it's not something that you set and forget. That's why publishing content, building your brand, really, really important. Focus on the signals you can control as opposed to worrying about some of the things you can't control. Really important. And then last thing is, from a competition standpoint, paid ads get preference. So not something to say you don't do paid because you show up good in the local pack. But I would say definitely 100% look at holistically what kind of marketing you need to do in your local area based on the competition in the different areas there. I'm going to take a quick breath, but I'm going to go through the types of medical practice. I know that a lot of people here are multi-location, but I'm going to cover this as well as far as different types of business. So let's start with just multi-location practices. So think locally at the enterprise level, really important. Centralized management, localized content, patient reviews generally handled centrally, local keyword strategy, and looking at holistically the business itself. Number two is, hospitals and large healthcare facilities. Sometimes they can have sub facilities or remote offices or satellite offices. So important to understand that sometimes a large hospital or hospital and large healthcare facilities might have different locations they need to worry about. But if it's one location that has multiple departments, then we can create different department strategies, different department tactics to actually address each of those departments. Really, really important to look at that and make sure some of these hospitals, some hospitals I know are really big. So sometimes having a mobile experience that's wonderful helps someone get from one end of the hospital to the other. So they can go from the entrance to the cardiac area. So these are really important to think about. Specialized medical services. So niche keywords for localization, leverage keyword research for local opportunities. So this is one of our clients, innovative renal care, 200 and something locations. You have to make sure you rank nationally for some of the CKD type queries, dialysis type queries, and then locally you're ranking for basically dialysis center near me, or dialysis center in Florida, or dialysis center in Palm Beach. So those are things that you have to really focus, globally or an enterprise level, and then also down to the location level as well. And then look, for folks that are just a single location medical practice, really important to have a well filled out, complete Google business profile. I can't stress that enough. No matter what kind of business you are, in medicine, people are searching for someone local or searching by a location. So it's really key to make sure you have a Google business profile complete, you engage with the community, you get local backlinks and citations from other local businesses, and you have a focused content strategy, not generic, focused on your area, your location, the challenges, what you see from a data standpoint in your area as well. And then obviously all this stuff, it's moot if we cannot measure it. So Google does provide some really good dashboards, and they provide data from your Google business profile that you can see, like this data. We use a third-party agency analytics that pulls in the local Google business data and can present it. We also create custom dashboards for some of our clients. But the key thing here is, what's important. The KPIs, obviously, search rankings, where you show up. Talked about SEO being an important part of local business too. Website traffic, also important. Conversion rate, important, obviously, where the rubber meets the road. The Google Business Profile insights are really important. You can see whether people click to call, whether they ask for directions, so they click on Get Me Directions, how many clicks go through to your website. These are really, really important metrics. Google kind of puts them in one box called interactions. So everything adds up to how many interactions that you get, and to see that change over time and to see the differences between different locations can provide a lot of value. So aggregating this so you can see it in an easy format is sometimes a much better way of looking at it than just going through each one within the Google Business Profile. The challenges, I'll go through this pretty quickly. The first one is it takes time. And leveraging enterprise software is really important. Obviously, we have an enterprise level of the software, but it's really important to leverage that so you can see things like data at scale. You can see things like whether your name, address, phone number is consistent across Apple Maps and across Yelp. So all that stuff can be seen at an enterprise level, that 30,000-foot view. But it takes time and it takes focus. It's got to be done right. It's got to be done consistently. I keep underscoring that, and completeness as well. When you're looking for subject matter experts, you want to make sure that you have partners that have, relationships with some of the enterprise tools. You want to make sure that they have local experience, obviously in the medical space, definitely. Sometimes it's challenging to develop that kind of expertise in-house. Not impossible, but it's generally better to partner. And also you want to make sure that you can save money on some of these tools as well. I hate to talk about that, but sometimes you get a preferred deal when you go through an agency. For example, Google. If you want to go direct to Google, you have to go through one of their providers. Unless you're spending multiple $1 million, you aren't allowed to use some of the Google Enterprise tools. So important to understand that as well. Measuring success and ROI, I mentioned that as a challenge. You must make sure you're watching the right metrics, and you're able to see something like this, where you've got a dashboard that has all your different Google profiles laid out. Much easier, much better to see what might be performing better and what might not be. And that's how you can essentially, focus in the right place, because we said it's a lot of work. More often than not, it's a matter of focusing on 10 locations, focus on the next 10 locations, make sure they're complete and everything else. And with that, I'm going to take a breath. That's what I have as our local search presentation today, specifically for multi-location businesses, and how we can help and how you can help yourselves. Stuart, did you want to step in and we can do some Q&A?
Yeah, sure. While you look at the glance at the Q&A, why don't you switch to the next slide there, Brett, or Grant rather, sorry.
So
That's funny. So, yeah, we're here to help you. We are, as you know, an agency that works in nothing but healthcare. Digital marketing is our favorite muscle. We're truly integrated, so we do really everything that you would need. But this is a part of what we do, local SEO, and we were covering in these webinars many of the different things that matter. There's lots. This is just one topic, and we've taken at breakneck speed, almost the full hour, going at a very cursory level. One thing I'd like to point out too is this is just the first level. Like, so for example, once this is all done right, then you have to go back and look at Apple Maps. Is your location showing up right there? Is Bing. And even though we use tools to get things consistently across all these different directories, still there's aberration. So it's a lot of work, but the rewards are worth it. And once it's finally working, you can never stop. But it's a lot easier to manage once it's up and running versus starting from scratch. Because if you stop, particularly with a lot of those local directories, it'll eventually decay very, very quickly in our experience. So but again, it's, an object in motion tends to stay in motion. It's a lot easier once it's up and running. Grant, one of the questions that you'd answered. So, I'm sorry, one more thing. If you're interested in working with us, just reach out to us. We can do a sort of local SEO checkup for you, show you, for example, how you're looking to Google's eyes and how you look on local directories. So we're happy to do that if you're interested in working with us. Grant, going to the Q&A, one of the questions was that you answered, but they may not be familiar with it. So essentially, there was the questions regarding the subdomain versus the directory. And to make it easy for you, it's generally better to be yourpractice.com/Toledo, yourpractice.com/Chicago versus chicago.yourpractice.com. That's not generally the best way to do it. And if you're asking that question, that's a much bigger problem, meaning that your entire website URL structure needs to be really thought through. So local is part of this, but the entire thing, like you want to make your directory structure so that it's obvious for humans and it's obvious to Google, how your services are rendered and where and what your procedures you're doing, all those things. So that's, on-site SEO as opposed to the local stuff, but it all works together.
yeah,
Do you have any
I'll add
finishing
to that.
thoughts? Yeah, go
There
ahead.
are no absolutes in SEO. So your mileage may vary. There might be scenarios where having a subdomain like location.businessname.com may make sense. Sometimes that's if you've had that particular structure for years, you've built up equity in it. It's not worthwhile
Sure, for sure.
sometimes changing it. But I always want to make that caveat because
For
there are
sure.
no
That's
absolutes.
why you need
Even
an
my
SEO,
statement,
right?
yeah,
To
yeah.
look at this, because we have that same thing. We have on our website things that happened. We started in 2006. So we have some legacy domain structure on our site that, it's already working. If you mess with it, you risk the wrath of Google. So you have to make experience-based decisions on these. So they ask repeatedly for an answer. Generally, that's the right answer, but it really requires someone with experience and knowledge to look at it because there are trade-offs. And these are the kinds of things that our team talks about when we're working with a client. Usually the answer is clear, but sometimes there's trade-offs, and that's really where the experience part as well as the expertise comes in.
Yeah, I want to
Great.
answer a anonymous attendee. Thank you. Thank you. No, I'm an anonymous presenter. No, so I'm curious. This is the question. I'm curious to tell with data how local SEO is actually working from a business perspective. How do you measure actual success, increase new patients, more frequent well visits from existing patients? How do you know your local SEO is actually having an effect on your business goals and strategy? Look, it's a really good question, and everything has to be justified. There's no use just painting the wall yellow if it's not going to make a difference fundamentally to your business. So Google does provide tools that basically shows how many people are clicking through. As I showed you on that agency analytics dashboard, you can see interactions, and within Google Business Profile, you can see interactions of what people are actually doing on your Google Business Profile, i.e. clicks, calls, setting appointments. All this stuff can be tracked, as well as chats and things like that. So indirectly, that would be a fractional conversion to know that someone has actually made an action, look for directions or other things like that. Number two is, more often than not, we have location-specific tags that allow us to know where a particular action takes place. So, for example, fill out a form or click a button or make an appointment on a location page we're able to track that, and we're able to track that often back to where they came from originally. So attributing that back to either a Google Business Profile click or an organic click in search results or a paid click. In the same token, we can tell the channel. So in that way, you can actually segment your overall conversions by conversion source or by the page where the conversion happened. So in GA4 events and things like that, you can tell where it happened and assign a value to that particular action. So in that case, we can give attribution to our local efforts. Always starts with traffic, and are we generating traffic? Always starts with, is our Google Business Profile interactions improving? And then we have to see where the rubber meets the road as far as does that actually, through site tracking, demonstrate that that is adding value. Is anything you want to add to that at all, Stuart?
No, I think you've covered that pretty well. I did want to pivot just for a moment, and that this stuff does work. Like on our website, if you go to our case studies, one of them is on Illinois dermatology, which is predominantly about local SEO. And this particular business had, so we don't show all of our clients here clearly, but this is just one. But after going through this process, this is 17 locations, so it's still a big lift, but can be much bigger. But over a period of time, once we got it up and running, the results are 243% increase in Google Business Profile views year over year, 114% local searches, 82% in organic clicks year over year, 78% in keyword rankings year over year. So we probably should have had those stats up. For new searches, 1,175,000 up 114% year over year. Number of views, 2.4 million, 16,000 clicks to the website. These are huge factors that really matter. So this isn't just theory. It's we talked about how hard this is, but the reward is there. And especially if you're in a business where search matters to you, this is something that you really want to take seriously.
I think search matters to everyone. Yeah, with the local actual physical location, it's going to matter to everyone. And I don't see this reducing down either. Even with some of the AI and generative search that's coming out, still Google is presenting the most relevant results. And that's going to come from that relevance, the proximity and prominence that Google pushes, and comes from how you're doing in SEO as far as the organic rankings too. So it's not going away even with the newest updates that Google's going to push out. They still want to present. If someone's searching locally, they want to make sure they present the best local option. And that can be your practice and your clinic and your location. So yeah.
Great. Grant, thank you for your time today. We've gone over a few minutes. Appreciate your time. Awesome co-presenting with you as always. And we'll see you at the next one and our next client meeting. See you, Grant.
All right. Cheers. Thanks, Stuart.